The baby Nora holds, the one she's been told to pretend is hers, carries her actual DNA, stolen 3 years ago during a medical screening she thought was routine. King Zane knows this. The council knows this. But Nora believes she's protecting a stranger's child, while the man who destroyed her life watches her fall in love with her own daughter without realizing the truth. Every lullaby she whispers is to her own flesh. Every lie she tells is unnecessary. And when she finally discovers what they've hidden, the choice between revenge and motherhood will shatter everything.
Pretend like your baby is mine. The silver collar bites into Nora's throat like frozen teeth. She doesn't flinch. She learned years ago that flinching only gives them satisfaction, and satisfaction is the one thing she refuses to hand the council for free. The metal burns, engineered to suppress an Omega's scent, to mark her as property, as exile, as less. But Nora keeps her chin level, her gaze fixed on the marble steps where she once stood as a judge, where she once decided who lived and who was cast beyond the territory line. The irony tastes like blood. Nora, hail! Councilman Aaron's voice booms across the execution plaza, amplified by the cathedral acoustics of the central hall. His face is carved granite, his silver robes pristine. You have been found guilty of genetic sabotage against the Pack Nation. You corrupted our sacred records. You endangered our bloodline purity. You are hereby stripped of rank, property, and protection. The crowd, hundreds of wolves packed into the gallery above, doesn't make a sound. They never do during exiles. Fear is a contagious thing in a society where one algorithmic flag on your genetic profile can turn you from citizen to criminal overnight. Nora's knees ache from kneeling on the stone, but she doesn't shift. The collar's chain is held by a junior enforcer who looks barely old enough to shave, his hand trembling where it grips the links. He's afraid of her. Good. He should be. She was the best legal mind the council ever had. She built half the constitutional amendments they're using to destroy her now. She knows exactly how this works. The public humiliation, the theatrical judgment, the 24 hours they'll give her to reach the border before they send hunters. What she doesn't know, what makes her pulse kick despite her iron control, is why he's here. King Zane stands at the far edge of the dais, a shadow in charcoal and midnight leather, his arms crossed over his chest. He hasn't spoken, hasn't moved. But his eyes, winter gray and merciless, haven't left her face since the guards dragged her into the hall. He signed her exile warrant. She saw the digital signature herself, saw the cold efficiency of his approval on the document that ended her life. So why is he watching her like she's an equation he hasn't solved yet? You will leave at dawn, Aaron continues, his tone dripping with righteous fury. Any pack that shelters you will be considered complicit in your crimes. Any wolf who aids you will share your fate. You are nothing now, Nora Hale. You are... Enough! The word cuts through the hall like a blade through silk. Every head turns. The enforcer's hand goes slack on the chain. King Zane steps forward, and the temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. When an alpha king speaks, the air itself listens. She's heard the sentence, Zane says, his tone flat, bored even. Let's not waste time on theater. Councilman Aaron's jaw tightens, but he bows. They all bow. Because Zane is the apex predator in a nation built on the worship of genetic dominance, and even the council, corrupt, cruel, untouchable, knows better than to challenge him directly. Zane descends the dais steps with the fluid grace of something built for violence. His boots echo on marble. He stops 3 feet from Nora, close enough that she can smell the cold wind and smoke scent that clings to him, close enough that she has to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. Stand up, he says quietly. It's not a suggestion. Nora rises slowly, her legs stiff, her spine straight. The collar's weight pulls at her neck, but she refuses to hunch. She will not give him, give any of them the satisfaction of seeing her broken. Zane's expression doesn't change. His eyes are glacial, unreadable. For a long moment he simply studies her. Her bruised wrists, her torn judge's robes, the defiant tilt of her chin. Then he leans in. Close. Too close. His breath ghosts against her ear, and every wolf in the gallery leans forward, straining to hear, but his voice is pitched for her alone. Take it. Confusion flickers through her before she feels the weight. Something solid, warm, squirming. Nora's gaze drops and her heart stops. An infant, barely 3 months old, wrapped in violet silk, its eyes, impossible, violet eyes that glow faintly in the dim light, blinking up at her with unfocused curiosity. The baby makes a soft cooing sound, its tiny fist curling against her collarbone. Nora's hands move on instinct, cradling the child before it can fall, her mind fracturing into 1,000 questions she can't voice because Zane is still there, still leaning close, his lips nearly brushing the shell of her ear. Claim it as your own, he whispers, and there's something raw beneath the command, something that sounds almost like desperation. Or the council executes us both before dawn. Nora's breath catches. Her fingers tighten reflexively around the baby, and she feels the impossible wrongness of this moment settle into her bones. The council doesn't execute kings. Kings don't hand Omega exiles forbidden infants in the middle of a sentencing. None of this makes sense. But Zane pulls back, and his face is a mask again, cold, distant, untouchable. He addresses the council without looking at them. The exile is postponed, he says. I'm claiming right of custody. Aaron surges forward. Your Majesty, the law clearly states. The law states that a king may claim any wolf for royal service. Zane interrupts, his tone glacial. I'm invoking that right. Nora Hale will serve in my household until I determine her fate. The silence is deafening. Nora stares at him, her mind racing. Custody? Royal service? This isn't mercy. Zane doesn't do mercy. He's playing a game she can't see yet, and she's a piece on a board she didn't know existed. The baby shifts in her arms, its tiny fingers gripping her torn sleeve, and Nora looks down at those glowing violet eyes, eyes that no natural-born wolf should have, and feels the first cold thread of understanding snake through her chest. This isn't a baby. This is a weapon, and Zane just made her the trigger. Take her to the north wing, Zane orders the guards, his voice clipped. No one speaks to her. No one enters her rooms without my direct authorization. Am I clear? The guards snap to attention. Yes, Your Majesty. Nora wants to scream, wants to demand answers, to throw the child back at him and force him to explain what kind of nightmare he's dragging her into. But the collar is still locked around her throat, and the council is still watching, and the baby in her arms is looking at her with eyes that seem far too aware for something so small. So she does the only thing she can do. She holds the child closer and follows the guards out of the hall, feeling Zane's gaze burn into her back with every step. Hey there, beautiful souls. I'm so glad you're here with me right now. Seriously, wherever you are in the world, whether you're listening while you're driving, cooking, working, or just trying to escape reality for a little while, thank you for being here. Where are you watching from? I always love hearing where this story finds you. Drop a comment and let me know your city, your country, or just how you're feeling right now. Are you okay? I mean that. Life can be heavy sometimes, and if you're here because you need to disappear into someone else's chaos for a bit, I get it. You're not alone. Now let me ask you something because I need to know what you're thinking after that opening. Do you trust Zane? I mean, really. He just handed Nora, an exiled Omega he personally signed the warrant for, a mysterious baby with glowing violet eyes, and told her to claim it as her own, or they both die. That's not a rescue. That's a trap. Or is it? Maybe it's both. Maybe it's something worse. Here's what I need from you. If you think Zayn orchestrated Nora's exile for a reason, if you think he's been planning this from the beginning, comment calculated. If you think he's desperate and drowning and Nora just became his last lifeline, comment desperation. And if you think that baby is going to destroy them both no matter what they do, comment violet eyes. And listen, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. Not for me, for you. Because what Nora and Zayn are about to uncover is going to shred everything you think you know about power, betrayal, and what it really means to love someone you should probably hate. You don't want to miss a single second of this, trust me. And as for Nora, she's about to find out exactly what that baby really is. The North Wing smells like cold stone and old power. Nora crosses the threshold into rooms she's never seen before. Rooms reserved for political prisoners or royal mistresses or whatever category she's been shoved into now. And the guards lock the door behind her with a finality that makes her teeth clench. The baby in her arms whimpers softly, and she looks down at those impossible violet eyes, still glowing faintly in the dim light. "Who are you?" she whispers. The baby blinks. Doesn't answer. Obviously. Nora sets the child carefully on the massive bed. Silk sheets, ridiculous thread count, the kind of luxury she used to have before the council decided she was disposable, and starts pacing. Her mind is a battlefield. Every instinct she honed as a judge is screaming at her to analyze, to find the pattern, to locate the leverage. Zayn didn't save her. Kings don't save exiled Omegas out of sentiment. He used her. But for what? The baby makes a gurgling sound, and Nora stops mid-stride. She stares at the infant, at the violet eyes that shouldn't exist in nature, at the way its scent is wrong. Not bad, just absent. Like someone scrubbed it clean of anything identifiable. "You're not real," Nora says slowly. "You're engineered, synthetic." The word tastes like acid. The Council's Genetic Purity Project has been whispered about for years. Rumors of lab-grown wolves, designer bloodlines, attempts to perfect the species. Nora always dismissed it as paranoid conspiracy theory. She was wrong. This baby is proof, and Zayn just made her its mother. Nora sinks onto the edge of the bed, her hands shaking. She was a judge for 8 years. She knows pack law better than she knows her own heartbeat. If Zayn wants her to prove this child is their biological offspring, he's asking her to commit fraud at the highest level, to falsify genetic records, to manipulate the very system she once enforced. It's brilliant. It's insane. It's the only move that makes sense if he's trying to protect something the Council wants destroyed. But why her? The door opens without warning, and Nora's on her feet instantly, her body positioned between the intruder and the baby before her brain catches up. Zayn stands in the doorway, still dressed in black, still radiating that cold, controlled menace that makes him the most dangerous wolf in the territory. He closes the door behind him with a soft click. "You didn't run," he says. "You locked the door." "The window's not locked." Nora's jaw tightens. "I'm 3 stories up. You're an Omega, you'd survive the fall." His tone is flat, clinical. "You stayed because you want answers." "I stayed because you threatened to kill us both if I didn't play along with whatever nightmare you're orchestrating," Nora snaps. "So start talking. What is this child? Why does it have violet eyes? And why—" Her voice cracks despite herself. "Why am I the one you dragged into this?" Zayn moves further into the room, and Nora hates how her body tenses, how every instinct reads him as predator, even though she refuses to be prey. He stops near the fireplace, his gaze flicking to the baby on the bed before returning to her. "The Council created it," he says bluntly, "a perfect heir, engineered for maximum alpha, genetics, designed to replace me if I ever become inconvenient." Nora's blood goes cold. "They're planning a coup." They're planning an upgrade. His smile is bitter. I'm 34, no mate, no heir. The council's patience is running thin, so they made their own solution. And you stole it. I liberated it. Zane's eyes are hard. That child is a person, not a political tool. But if the council discovers I took it, they'll execute me for treason and dissect the baby for parts. Our only option is to legitimize it before they realize it's missing. Nora laughs, a sharp, humorless sound. You want me to forge genetic records proving you and I produced a viable alpha heir together? That's impossible. The system is quantum encrypted. You built that encryption, Zane interrupts softly. You wrote the constitutional amendment that made genetic verification mandatory. If anyone can exploit its weaknesses, it's you. Nora stares at him. You framed me. You destroyed my entire life so I'd be desperate enough to— I isolated you, Zane corrects. And there's something almost gentle in his voice now, something that makes her chest ache. Your allies on the council would have protected you from anything short of genetic sabotage. I needed you alone. I needed you angry. I needed you with nothing left to lose. The truth hits her like a physical blow. He didn't just frame her. He studied her, learned her, dissected her psychology, orchestrated her downfall with surgical precision because he knew exactly what kind of weapon rage would make her. I hate you, Nora whispers. Good, Zane says. Hatred is easier than trust. We're going to need a lot of both before this is over. The baby coos softly, and they both turn to look at it. This tiny, impossible thing that somehow holds both their futures in its violet-eyed gaze. Nora takes a shaking breath. If I do this, if I help you, I want something in return. Name it. When this is over, Nora says, her voice steady now, sharp as broken glass. I want the council destroyed. Not arrested, not exiled, destroyed. I want every elder who signed my warrant to lose everything they love, the way they took everything from me. Zane's smile is slow, dangerous, and for the first time since she met him, genuine. Now we're speaking the same language, he says. The genetic lab is silent except for the hum of quantum processors. Nora's fingers fly across the holographic interface, her eyes scanning lines of code that would look like gibberish to anyone else. But to her, it's poetry. Deadly, precise, exploitable poetry. She's been at this for 6 hours straight, surviving on black coffee and pure spite, and she's finally found it. The weakness, the crack in the armor she built herself. Got it, she mutters. Zane moves behind her, close enough that she can feel his body heat. He hasn't left her side since they started this insane project 3 days ago. Every moment is supervised, calculated, controlled. She hates it. She hates him. She hates that she's starting to understand why he moves the way he does, always positioned between her and the door, always watching her hands, always ready for betrayal. Trust issues look different when you're the king everyone wants dead. Show me, Zane says. Nora pulls up the genetic registry interface. The system requires 3 verification points: DNA sample, pheromone signature, and quantum biometric scan. The first 2 I can fake with enough time. The third is the problem. Why? Because quantum biometric scans measure your literal genetic resonance, the unique frequency your DNA emits. It's impossible to forge because it's generated in real time during the scan. Even identical twins have different resonances. Zane's jaw tightens. So we're done before we started. No. Nora zooms in on a section of code. We're done if we try to fake your resonance. But if we create a new category, a hybrid resonance that theoretically could only exist between an alpha king and an omega judge, we can argue the baby inherited a novel genetic signature. The council will never accept that. They will if we make it legal first. Nora turns to face him, and the sudden proximity makes her breath catch. She covers it with anger. We introduce a constitutional amendment, emergency measures for unprecedented genetic advancement. Make it sound like progress, like evolution. The Council loves anything that sounds like genetic superiority. Zane studies her for a long moment, his gray eyes unreadable. You're not just smart. You're vicious. You made me this way. No. His voice drops. I just gave you permission to stop pretending you weren't. The words hit deeper than they should. Nora turns back to the screen before he can see her face, before he can read whatever emotion is clawing its way up her throat. The baby, they've been calling it the project, both of them avoiding names, avoiding attachment, is asleep in a bassinet near the lab's corner. Nora glances at it, at those closed violet eyelids, and feels something twist in her chest. We need a public appearance, Zane says abruptly. The Lunar Gala is in 4 days. The entire council will be there. Every pack alpha, every media outlet. Nora's stomach drops. You want to present the baby? Publicly. I want to present us. Zane's tone is clinical, but there's tension in his shoulders now. Our mating. Our child. The perfect genetic union that the council should celebrate, not question. We're not mated. They don't know that. Nora laughs bitterly. You think we can fake a mate bond? Those are biological, Zane. Pheromone synchronization, scent marking, the... She stops, stares at him. You want to actually do it. You want to force a mate bond. I want to simulate one long enough to pass inspection. Zane's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in his eyes. It requires proximity, physical contact, scent exchange. We have 4 days to make our biology cooperate. That's insane. That's survival. The door to the lab explodes inward. Nora spins, her heart slamming into her ribs, as 3 council enforcers storm inside. Full tactical gear, weapons drawn, eyes cold. The lead enforcer is Cade, a wolf she used to work with, a man she once considered a friend. Step away from the console, Cade orders, his weapon trained on Nora. Zane moves in front of her instantly, his body a wall between her and the guns. Explain, now. Emergency council order, Your Majesty. Cade's voice is tight. Genetic registry shows unauthorized access from this terminal. We're authorized to detain anyone involved. Nora's mind races. They found the intrusion too fast. Someone's watching. Someone inside the council knows. I authorize the access, Zane says coldly. Stand down. The order comes from High Priestess Mara herself, Cade counters. She requests your immediate presence in the council chamber, alone. The temperature in the room drops. Mara. The High Priestess is the only wolf in the territory with authority to challenge a king's direct order. Spiritual law trumps secular power in moments of genetic crisis. And if Mara suspects what they're doing, they're already dead. Zane doesn't move. I'll attend when I'm ready. The priestess insists it's urgent, Your Majesty. It concerns... Cade's gaze flicks to the bassinet, to the sleeping baby. Unauthorized genetic material within the royal residence. Nora's blood turns to ice. They know. Somehow, they already know. Zane's hand finds hers, a brief, grounding touch that no one else can see. Then he steps forward, his expression carved from stone. I'll see the priestess now, he says. But Nora Hale and the child remain under my protection. Anyone who enters this lab without my authorization will be considered an act of treason. Are we clear? Cade hesitates, then nods. Clear, Your Majesty. Zane leaves without looking back, flanked by enforcers, and Nora stands frozen in the empty lab with a stolen baby and the terrible certainty that she just watched him walk into an execution. The baby wakes, violet eyes blinking open, and begins to cry. Nora moves to it on instinct, lifting it into her arms, her mind screaming plans and probabilities and worst-case scenarios. But all she can think is, he touched my hand. Why did he touch my hand? And why does her skin still burn where his fingers were? Zayn returns 3 hours later, looking like he's been through a war. Nora hears his footsteps in the corridor before the door opens, heavy, uneven, wrong. She's on her feet instantly, the baby secure in a sling against her chest, because she's learned in the past 72 hours that keeping her hands free is the difference between survival and catastrophe. When Zayn enters, there's blood on his collar. What happened? The question escapes before Nora can stop it, before she can remember she's supposed to hate him. Zayn closes the door, locks. It leans against it like it's the only thing holding him upright. Mara knows about the child, not everything, not yet, but enough to be dangerous. How much is enough? She knows it's synthetic. She knows it's not registered in the official genetic database. She knows I'm hiding it. His eyes meet hers, and there's something raw there, something that looks almost like fear. She's given me 72 hours to present proof of legitimate parentage, or she'll invoke the ancient laws and declare me unfit to rule. Nora's breath catches. The ancient laws, pre-digital, pre-modern, rooted in bloodline mysticism and spiritual authority. If Mara invokes them, she can strip Zayn of his title without council approval, without trial, without mercy. She's forcing our hand, Nora says slowly. The Lunar Gala isn't a presentation anymore. It's a trial. Worse. Zayn pushes off the door, crosses to the lab station, pulls up a holographic document. She's demanding a bonding ceremony. Public. Witnessed by the High Circle. If we can't prove a genuine mate bond during the ritual, she'll declare the child illegitimate and have it destroyed. The room tilts. The bonding ceremony takes weeks of preparation, spiritual cleansing, fasting, we have 3 days, Zayn's voice is flat, and we're skipping everything except the final trial. Nora knows what that means. The final trial of a bonding ceremony is the resonance test, a ritual where potential mates stand before the high priestess while she reads their genetic and spiritual compatibility. It's supposed to reveal the mate bond's strength, its authenticity. It's also impossible to fake. This is suicide, Nora whispers. This is our only move. Zayn turns to face her fully now, and the exhaustion in his features makes him look almost human, almost vulnerable. Mara outmaneuvered me. She knows I can't produce a real mate bond in 3 days. She's counting on us to fail. Then we will fail. Not if we make the bond real. Nora stares at him. You can't force a mate bond, Zayn. It doesn't work like that. Biology doesn't care about strategy. Biology responds to proximity, to stress, to survival instinct. He steps closer, and Nora's back hits the lab console. Mate bonds form fastest under crisis conditions, when two wolves believe they're the only thing standing between each other and death. Nora's voice cracks. That's not romance, that's trauma bonding. I'm not offering you romance. Zayn's gaze drops to the baby asleep against her chest, then back to her face. I'm offering you a chance to survive long enough to destroy the people who ruined your life. Isn't that what you want? Yes. God, yes. The need for revenge burns in her chest like swallowed glass, sharp and constant and all-consuming. But this? What you're asking requires trust, Nora says carefully. Physical intimacy, scent bonding. You're asking me to let you close enough to what? Hurt you? Hurt? Zayn's laugh is bitter. Nora, I've already destroyed your entire existence. What's left for you to lose? Everything, she thinks. Whatever small, stubborn part of me still believes I'm more than the weapon you're trying to make me. But she doesn't say that. Instead, she asks, what happens after? If we succeed? If we convince Mara the bond is real and the baby is legitimate, what happens when the lies pile so high we can't see over them anymore? Zayn is quiet for a long moment. Then, we bury the council under them. The baby stirs, makes a small sound, and Nora's hand automatically moves to soothe it. The gesture is becoming instinctive now. Protective, maternal, dangerous. She's starting to think of this child as hers, and that's the most terrifying development of all. I need something first, Nora says, before I agree to this. Name it. I need to know why you really chose me. She holds his gaze. The truth this time, not strategy, not tactics. Why me specifically? Zane's jaw tightens. For a moment she thinks he won't answer. Then, because 8 years ago, when I took the throne, you were the only council judge who questioned my legitimacy claim. You filed a legal challenge demanding genetic proof of my alpha bloodline. Nora's breath stops. She remembers. Of course she remembers. The case was sealed, buried, dismissed as frivolous within days. You were right to question it, Zane continues, his voice dropping. And I've been watching you ever since, waiting for the day I'd need someone brilliant enough to challenge the system and angry enough to burn it down. The confession sits between them like a loaded gun. You've been planning this for 8 years, Nora whispers. I've been surviving for 8 years. Zane reaches out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touches her cheek with a gentleness that contradicts everything she knows about him. You're the first person who's ever seen through me, Nora. That makes you either my greatest threat or my only ally. I'm betting everything on option 2. His hand is warm, his scent, cold wind and smoke, wraps around her, and Nora feels something shift in her chest, something biological and terrifying and inevitable. The mate bond isn't real yet, but it's starting, and that might be more dangerous than anything the council can do to them. The scent bonding starts at midnight. Nora didn't expect it to feel like this, like surrendering something essential, like peeling back skin to expose nerve endings. Zane sits across from her in the private chamber, close enough that their knees touch, and the air between them hums with tension that has nothing to do with strategy. We have to exchange scent markers, Zane says, his voice rough. Directly. No synthetic substitutes. Nora swallows hard. Scent marking is intimate, wrist to throat to wrist, the oldest ritual of claiming in wolf culture. It's what bonded mates do instinctively, what her body has been engineered to crave, and fear in equal measure. This doesn't mean anything, she says. It's just biology. Keep telling yourself that. Zane leans forward, and Nora tilts her head to expose her throat, hating herself, hating him, hating how her pulse jumps when his wrist presses against her skin. His scent floods her senses, smoke and winter and something darker, something that tastes like danger and protection twisted together. Her body responds before her mind can stop it. Heat, recognition, want. Your turn, Zane murmurs, pulling back just enough to expose his own throat. Nora's hand trembles as she raises her wrist to his skin. The moment they connect, something snaps into place. Not the full mate bond, not yet, but the beginning of it. The biological recognition that they could be compatible, that their genetics are singing the same frequency. Zane's breath hitches. His hand comes up to grip her waist, steadying her or steadying himself, she can't tell. This is working, he says quietly, faster than I expected. Nora pulls away, her heart hammering. Because we're both desperate, that's all this is. Is it? Before she can answer, the baby starts crying from the bassinet. Nora moves to it automatically, lifting the child, her mind whispers traitorously, and that's when she sees it. The medical report. Sitting on Zane's desk, half hidden under genetic analysis documents. Her name is on it, her genetic code, dated 3 years ago. Nora's blood turns to ice. She crosses to the desk slowly, the baby still in her arms, and pulls the document into the light. Her eyes scan the text once, twice, 3 times, but the words don't change. Genetic material harvested. Viability, 100%. Cleared for synthesis project. What is this? Her voice sounds distant, fractured. Zane goes very still. Nora. What is this? She spins to face him, and the look on his face, guilt, resignation, something that might be grief, confirms her worst nightmare. 3 years ago, you had a mandatory medical screening, Zane says carefully. All council judges did. It was supposed to be routine. They harvested my eggs. The words taste like poison. They took my genetic material without my consent and… Her gaze drops to the baby in her arms, to those violet eyes that suddenly look terrifyingly familiar. Oh God. The child isn't synthetic, Zane says quietly. Not entirely. The violet eyes, the enhanced genetics, those are engineered. But the base DNA is yours. And mine. The room spins. Nora clutches the baby tighter, her mind fracturing. You knew. This whole time you knew this was my biological child and you let me think. You made me pretend. I made you believe the lie because you never would have agreed to protect it if you knew the truth, Zane interrupts, his voice sharp now. You would have asked questions, demanded investigations, and the council would have killed you both before you got answers. So you manipulated me instead. Nora's laugh is broken, hysterical. You framed me, exiled me, handed me my own stolen child and told me to pretend it was fake. What kind of… She can't finish, can't breathe. Zane stands, moves toward her, but stops when she flinches. They were going to use your genetics to create a replacement heir, something they could control. I stole the embryo before it was fully weaponized, before they could strip away everything human and turn it into a tool. Like me. Nora's vision blurs. You're no different than them. I'm exactly like them, Zane says, and there's something raw in his voice now, something that sounds like truth. The only difference is, I'm trying to keep you both alive long enough to make this right. The baby, her daughter, her mind finally allows, makes a soft cooing sound, and Nora looks down at those violet eyes staring up at her with complete trust. This child didn't ask to be created as a political weapon, didn't ask to be born into lies and genetic manipulation and parents who are playing pretend while the world burns around them. Why violet eyes? Nora asks, her voice hollow. What did they engineer? Zane's jaw tightens. Enhanced perception, accelerated development, and… He hesitates. The ability to detect genetic deception. She'll be able to read DNA resonance signatures by the time she's 5. They created the perfect tool to enforce their purity laws. She's a living lie detector. She's your daughter. The words hit like a physical blow. Nora sinks onto the edge of the bed, still holding the baby, and feels something inside her crack wide open. All this time, she thought she was fighting for revenge, for justice, for the satisfaction of watching the council burn. But now she's fighting for this tiny, impossible person who shares her DNA and deserves a world that won't use her as a weapon. We can't let them have her, Nora whispers. We won't. Zane kneels in front of her, and for the first time since this nightmare started, he looks at her without calculation, without strategy, just exhaustion and determination and something that might be hope. But we have 48 hours until the bonding ceremony. If we can't convince Mara the mate bond is real, she'll take the baby and dissect her to find out what makes her special. Nora meets his gaze. Then we make it real. Nora, not pretend, not strategy. Her voice steadies. If we're going to do this, if we're going to protect her, then I need to know you're all in. No more lies, no more manipulation. We do this as actual partners or we don't do it at all. Zane studies her for a long moment. Then he reaches out and takes her hand, the same hand he touched in the lab days ago, the same hand that still burns with the memory. Partners, he says. I swear it on the throne I stole and the crown I don't deserve. No more lies between us. It's the first promise Nora actually believes. Nora just discovered that the baby she's been protecting, the child she thought was a synthetic weapon, is actually her biological daughter. Stolen from her body 3 years ago without her knowledge, engineered, weaponized, and Zane knew the entire time. Do you think Zane was protecting Nora by keeping this secret? Or do you think he was just manipulating her better than the council ever could? Comment protecting if you believe he did it to keep her safe. Comment manipulating if you think he's just as bad as the people who stole her genetic material in the first place. And here's the harder question. Can you forgive someone for lying to you if the lie was the only thing keeping you alive? Because that's what Nora has to figure out in the next 48 hours while trying to fake, or maybe make real, a mate bond that could save them all or destroy them completely. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now. Because what happens next, the bonding ceremony, the resonance test, the moment Mara tries to rip this family apart, is going to break your heart before it puts it back together. I'll see you there. And Nora? She's about to find out what she's really fighting for. The bonding ceremony begins at dawn, and Nora has never felt more like a sacrifice. She stands in the ritual chamber, ancient stone, carved with symbols older than pack law, lit by candlelight that throws shadows like accusations, wearing white silk that feels like a burial shroud. The baby is with trusted guards in a secure room, violet eyes watching everything, and Nora's chest aches with the distance. 48 hours. That's all they had to build something real out of lies and desperation. It wasn't enough. High Priestess Mara circles them slowly, her silver robes whispering against stone, her eyes sharp as broken glass. She's ancient. Older than the council, older than the genetic databases, old enough to remember when mate bonds were sacred instead of strategic. You claim this bond is genuine, Mara says, her voice echoing. You claim the child is legitimate. You claim your union deserves recognition under the ancient laws. Yes, Zane says. His hand finds Nora's, squeezes once. She can feel his pulse racing through the contact. Then prove it. Mara raises her staff, and the temperature drops. The resonance test will reveal truth. If your bond is false, your genetics will reject synchronization. If your claim is fraudulent, the resonance will shatter. And if either of you are deceiving this circle, her gaze locks on Nora. The punishment is death. Nora's throat closes. She knew this was coming. They prepared for this. But standing here now, feeling the weight of 100 watching wolves, feeling Zane's hand trembling against hers, they're going to fail. She can feel it. Begin, Mara commands. Zane pulls Nora closer, his arms wrapping around her waist, and she presses her face against his chest because she can't look at the council members watching from the gallery. Can't see Councilman Aaron's smug expression. Can't witness her own execution. Stay with me, Zane whispers against her hair. Whatever happens, stay with me. The resonance begins, a low hum that builds in Nora's bones, a frequency that pulls at her DNA like hands trying to reshape her from the inside out. It's searching, testing, trying to find the biological signature that proves she and Zane are compatible, and it's finding nothing. Nora gasps as pain lances through her chest. The resonance is rejecting them. Their scent bonding wasn't deep enough. Their connection isn't. Focus on me, Zane says urgently, his hand cupping her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Not the test, not them, just me. It's not working. Because you're fighting it. His thumb strokes her cheekbone. You're still protecting yourself, still keeping walls up. But that's not how mate bonds form, Nora. You have to let me in. I can't, her voice breaks. If I let you in, you'll destroy me. I already destroyed you. Zane's forehead presses against hers. And you're still standing. You're still fighting. You're the strongest wolf I've ever met, and I... He stops, swallows hard. I need you to trust me. Just for this moment. Please. The resonance builds, painful now, burning. Mara's voice cuts through the chamber. The bond is failing. Prepare for. Nora kisses him. She doesn't think, doesn't plan, just rises on her toes and presses her mouth to his with all the desperation and rage and terrified hope churning inside her. Zane freezes for half a heartbeat, then kisses her back like she's oxygen and he's drowning. The resonance explodes. Light floods the chamber, blinding, searing, and Nora feels something inside her chest crack open like a dam breaking. The mate bond snaps into place with brutal force, and suddenly she can feel everything. Zane's fear, his determination, his absolute certainty that he'll die before he lets anyone take her or their daughter. And underneath it all, buried so deep she almost misses it, his grief, the crushing weight of a secret he's been carrying alone. Nora pulls back, gasping, and Zane's eyes are wide with shock. "What did you do?" he whispers. "I chose this," Nora says. "I chose you." Mara's staff slams against stone. Impossible. The light fades, but the bond remains, a golden thread connecting Nora's chest to Zane's, visible only to them, pulsing with warmth and terror, and something that feels dangerously close to love. The resonance confirms compatibility, one of the witnessing elders announces, his voice uncertain. The bond is genuine. Murmurs ripple through the gallery. Aaron surges to his feet. "This is a trick. She's—" "The ancient laws are clear," Mara interrupts coldly. "A resonance of this magnitude cannot be faked. The bond is real. The mating is legitimate." Her gaze shifts to Nora, and there's something unreadable in her ancient eyes. The child will be tested separately, tomorrow. If her genetic markers match the bond signature, no. Every head turns. Zane steps forward, his body shielding Nora, his voice absolute authority. "You've had your test. You've verified the bond. The child remains under my protection. The law requires proof of legitimate parentage," Zane says sharply, "which you just confirmed through the resonance. Or are you suggesting the ancient laws are suddenly insufficient?" Mara's expression darkens. "Your Majesty, I must insist that you remember who holds authority in this territory." Zane's eyes flash. "The spiritual laws serve the throne, not the other way around." The silence is deafening. Then Mara bows, slowly, with an edge of threat that makes Nora's blood run cold. "As you command, Your Majesty, but know this." She straightens. "The ancient laws protect truth above all else. If deception is uncovered, not even the throne can shield you from consequences." She sweeps from the chamber, and half the council follows. Nora's legs give out. Zane catches her, pulls her against him, and she can feel his heart hammering through the bond now, terror and relief, and something darker. "We did it," she whispers. "We actually—" "Nora." Zane's voice is strained. "There's something else you need to know." Dread pools in her stomach. "What?" The resonance doesn't just confirm compatibility. He pulls back enough to meet her eyes. It reveals genetic truth, everything. And Mara saw. He stops, swallows. "She knows I'm not an alpha." The world tilts. "What?" "I'm a beta," Zane says quietly. "I have been this whole time. The throne, the title, everything, it's built on a lie. And now Mara has proof." Nora stares at him as the implications crash over her. If Zane isn't an alpha, his claim to the throne is invalid. If his claim is invalid, every law he's passed, every order he's given, including her exile, is null. Which means the council can execute him for fraud. And their bond, their desperate, real, impossible bond, won't be enough to save him. Nora doesn't sleep that night. She paces the royal chambers while Zane sits at his desk, staring at constitutional documents like they hold answers neither of them can find. The baby, Eva, they finally named her, because pretending she wasn't real stopped working the moment the mate bond snapped into place, sleeps peacefully in her bassinet, unaware that her parents are racing against a clock that's already run out. Mara will move against you before dawn, Nora says, her legal mind spinning through scenarios. She has to. The longer she waits, the more time you have to consolidate power or eliminate witnesses. I know. Zane's voice is hollow. So we move first. Nora stops pacing, her hands flat on the desk. We use the one weapon she can't counter. Which is? The truth. Nora pulls up the constitutional archives, her fingers flying across holographic text. You've been ruling as a beta for 8 years. In that time, you've passed 17 major amendments, reformed the genetic verification system, and maintained territorial stability better than the last 3 Alpha Kings combined. None of which matters if my claim was fraudulent from the start. It matters if we make it legal retroactively. Nora's eyes are bright now, fierce. We introduce an emergency amendment tonight, before Mara can move. A constitutional reform that removes the alpha bloodline requirement for kingship and replaces it with merit-based qualification. Zane looks up. The council will never pass that. The council doesn't have to. Nora zooms in on a buried clause. One she wrote herself years ago, one she forgot about until desperation made her remember. According to Article 12, Section 7, in times of genetic crisis threatening territorial stability, the reigning monarch can invoke emergency powers to amend the Constitution with just 60% approval from the High Circle. The High Circle is 12 wolves. We need 8 votes. We have 2. Nora meets his gaze. You and me. I was reinstated as your bonded mate during the ceremony. That gives me voting rights. We need 6 more. Then we find them. Nora straightens. Mara has enemies on the circle. Wolves who resent spiritual authority overriding secular law. Elders who've watched her accumulate power for decades. We offer them what they want most, a chance to limit the priestess's influence permanently. Zane stands slowly, and something shifts in his expression. Calculation returning, strategy rebuilding. You're talking about political warfare. I'm talking about survival. Nora crosses to him. You taught me that everything is a weapon if you're desperate enough. So let's use it. All of it. The bond, the baby. Your 8 years of competent rule, my legal expertise. We make this about protecting the future of pack law, not defending a liar on the throne. And if we fail? Then Mara executes you at dawn. The council takes Eva to dissect her engineered genetics, and I die knowing I couldn't save either of you. Nora's voice cracks. But we're not going to fail, because I didn't survive exile and genetic theft and falling in love with you just to lose everything now. The words hang in the air between them. Zane stares at her. You love me. Don't make it a thing. Nora's cheeks burn. It's just the bond talking. Biology, pheromones, we established this. Nora, we have 4 hours until dawn. She turns away, desperate to escape the intensity of his gaze. I need to draft the amendment language and identify which circle members are vulnerable to. Zane catches her wrist, spins her back, and kisses her. It's different from the ceremony. No desperation, no performance. Just his mouth on hers, his hand cupping her face, his whole body communicating something words can't. When he pulls back, his eyes are raw. I love you too. Since the day you challenged my legitimacy 8 years ago and looked at me like I was a problem to solve instead of a king to fear. This isn't the bond. This is me, choosing you, again. Nora's breath catches. Zane, I need you to know that before we walk into this fight. His thumb traces her cheekbone. Because if Mara wins, if this all falls apart, I need you to know you weren't just a weapon I used. You were the only real thing in a life built entirely on lies. Tears burn Nora's eyes. She grips his shirt, pulls him close, buries her face against his chest. We're going to win. We have to. Eva deserves parents who actually survive long enough to raise her. Then let's give her that. Zane kisses the top of her head. What do you need from me? Nora pulls back, wipes her eyes, and her expression shifts, back to the brilliant, vicious legal mind that made her the council's best judge. I need you to call an emergency high circle session, right now, before Mara can prepare. We catch them off balance and force the vote before they realize what we're doing. They'll suspect an ambush. Let them. We have the law on our side. Nora's smile is sharp. And I've spent 8 years learning every loophole in the system I built. It's time to weaponize all of it. Zane nods once. I'll make the call. He moves to the communications console, and Nora returns to the constitutional documents, her mind already 3 steps ahead, building arguments, anticipating objections, constructing the legal framework that will either save them or damn them completely. Eva stirs in her bassinet, and Nora glances at her daughter, at those violet eyes blinking open, at the tiny fist reaching toward nothing. We're fighting for you, Nora whispers. Everything we do, every lie, every risk, it's all for you. Eva coos softly, and the sound feels like hope. 2 hours later, the High Circle convenes in emergency session. Nora stands beside Zane in the council chamber, her heart hammering, her legal arguments loaded like bullets. Mara sits across from them, her expression carved from ice, and Nora knows with absolute certainty. This is the moment everything changes. Let's begin, Zane says. And the battle for their future starts. The vote comes down to a single wolf. Nora watches Elder Liam, a gray-haired councilman who served for 40 years, who's remained silent through the entire emergency session, and feels her entire future balance on whatever comes out of his mouth next. 7 votes. They have 7 votes. They need 8. Elder Liam, Zane says quietly, his voice steady despite the tension radiating through the bond. The question is simple. Does this territory value bloodline over competence, mythology over results, or do we evolve? Mara rises, her staff striking stone. You ask us to legitimize fraud, to reward deception. King Zane has ruled under false pretenses for 8 years. Every law he passed, every judgment he rendered, all of it built on a lie. A lie that kept this territory stable, Nora counters, stepping forward. A lie that reformed our corrupt genetic verification system. A lie that prevented 3 separate territorial wars through diplomatic brilliance. She meets Liam's gaze. Elder Liam, you voted against the Alpha Succession Act 15 years ago. You argued that merit should matter more than biology. Here's your chance to make that vision reality. Liam's weathered face reveals nothing. You're asking me to overturn centuries of tradition. I'm asking you to save a child's life, Nora says, and her voice cracks despite her effort to control it. My daughter, our daughter, is alive because Zane stole her from a council project that would have turned her into a weapon. She has violet eyes that can read genetic deception. She was engineered to enforce the very purity laws that would have had her destroyed if Zane hadn't intervened. That child is an abomination, Aaron snarls from his seat. Synthetic genetics violate— She's a person, Nora cuts him off, fury blazing through her. With a heartbeat and a future and the right to exist without being dissected by the same council that stole my genetic material without consent 3 years ago. Silence crashes through the chamber. Aaron goes white. That's a serious accusation. It's documented fact. Nora pulls up the medical records, the ones she and Zane compiled during their sleepless night, and projects them for the entire circle to see. Mandatory medical screenings, unauthorized genetic harvesting. 17 council judges had their eggs or sperm collected and stored in a classified facility. The council's been building a genetic database of superior specimens for years. Murmurs ripple through the circle. Elder after elder leans forward, reading the evidence with growing horror. This is unprecedented, one elder breathes. This is criminal, another adds. Mara's expression darkens. These records could be falsified. They're quantum certified, Nora interrupts. Time-stamped. Encrypted with the same system I designed for the genetic registry. You can verify their authenticity yourself, High Priestess. Unless you'd prefer not to? The implied accusation hangs heavy. Did Mara know? Was she complicit? Mara's jaw tightens, but she says nothing. Nora presses the advantage. The Council has been playing God with our genetics for years, and the only reason any of us know is because Zane, a beta king who shouldn't exist according to your precious ancient laws, had the courage to steal one child and expose the truth. She turns back to Liam. So vote. Vote for tradition and watch Eva die. Or vote for evolution and help us build a system where merit matters more than DNA. The silence stretches, then Liam stands. I vote in favor of the amendment. Relief floods through Nora so intensely her knees nearly buckle. Zane's hand finds hers, squeezes hard. The measure passes, Zane announces, his voice ringing with authority. Effective immediately, the alpha bloodline requirement is removed from constitutional law. Leadership will be determined by competency, not genetics. This is not over, Mara says coldly. The spiritual laws are subordinate to secular authority, Zane interrupts. As they've always been. You may maintain your religious role, High Priestess, but your ability to override the throne ends today. Mara's eyes flash with fury, but she bows, shallow, contemptuous, and sweeps from the chamber. Aaron rises next, his face twisted with rage. You think you've won? You've destroyed everything this territory stands for. I've exposed what you are, Nora says quietly. And now it's time for consequences. She nods to Zane, and he pulls up additional records, financial documents, communication logs, evidence compiled through weeks of desperate investigation. Councilman Aaron orchestrated the genetic harvesting program, Zane says. He authorized the theft of genetic material from 17 wolves, including Nora. He falsified records to frame her for genetic sabotage, and he embezzled territorial funds to finance the synthetic heir project. Aaron's face goes ashen. You have no proof. We have everything. Nora's smile is sharp as broken glass. Your own documentation. Signed, sealed, quantum certified. You were so confident you'd never be caught that you kept meticulous records. Councilman Aaron, Elder Liam says, standing. You are hereby stripped of rank and title. Guards will escort you to holding pending formal trial. Aaron lunges forward, toward Nora, toward the evidence, toward anything that might save him, but guards intercept him instantly. He struggles, screaming threats and accusations, but they drag him from the chamber nonetheless. 3 more council members flee immediately. They know their names are in those files. They know what's coming. Nora watches them go and feels something fierce and satisfying burn in her chest. Not quite justice. Not yet. But close enough to taste. Zane pulls her against him, and the bond pulses with shared triumph and exhaustion and love so overwhelming it hurts. We did it, he whispers against her hair. We survived, Nora corrects. Now we have to figure out how to actually rule. Zane laughs, a real laugh, the first she's ever heard from him. One crisis at a time, love. And for the first time since this nightmare started, Nora lets herself believe they might actually have a future. 3 months later, Nora stands in the reformed council chamber with Eva in her arms and watches the first merit-based judicial appointments in PAC history. The new judges are diverse. Alphas, betas, even 2 omegas, who never would have been considered under the old system. They take their oaths with hands on the revised constitution, the one Nora spent weeks rewriting to strip away genetic supremacy clause by clause. It's not perfect. Nothing built from the ashes of corruption ever is. But it's better. She's staring at them, Zane murmurs beside her, nodding toward Eva. Their daughter's violet eyes are fixed on the new judges with that unsettling awareness that reminds Nora exactly what she is, what they made her. She's reading them, Nora says quietly. Their genetic signatures, checking for deception. Is that something we need to worry about? It's something we need to teach her to control. Nora shifts Eva higher on her hip. She didn't ask for this ability, but we can help her use it responsibly. Zane's arm slides around Nora's waist, and the bond hums with warmth between them, still new, still surprising, still terrifying in its intensity. 3 months of actually being together, of learning each other without lies or performance, and Nora's still discovering things about him, like how he takes his coffee, how he smiles when Eva laughs, how he wakes up with nightmares about losing them both and reaches for Nora in the dark to confirm she's real. The ceremony concludes, and they retreat to the private royal wing, the space that's slowly becoming home instead of prison. Eva babbles happily, reaching for the afternoon sunlight streaming through windows, and Nora sets her in the play area they've built. Aaron's trial concluded this morning, Zane says, pulling up the judicial report. 23 counts of genetic theft, 12 counts of fraud, 7 counts of conspiracy. He's been sentenced to permanent exile beyond all territorial borders. Nora should feel victorious. Instead, she just feels tired. And the others? 4 more council members convicted. 3 fled to neutral territories. 2 are cooperating with investigators to expose the full scope of the genetic harvesting program. Zane closes the report. We're still finding victims, 17 confirmed so far, maybe more. We'll help them, Nora says firmly. Every single one, legal support, medical compensation, whatever they need. Already allocated funds. Zane moves behind her, wraps his arms around her waist, rests his chin on her shoulder. You've changed this place, Nora. In 3 months, you've done more to reform pack law than most kings manage in a lifetime. We changed it, Nora corrects, leaning back against him. I'm just the legal weapon. You're the one with the authority to actually implement it. Terrible partnership, Zane murmurs, his lips brushing her temple. A beta king who shouldn't exist, and an omega judge who refuses to stay silent. Worst power couple in pack history. Best, he corrects, and she can hear the smile in his voice. Eva makes a demanding sound, and they both turn to see her holding up a wooden block like an offering. Nora crosses to her, kneels down, accepts the block with appropriate reverence. Thank you, sweetheart, Nora says softly. That's very generous. Eva beams, a full, delighted smile that makes Nora's chest ache. This child, this impossible, beautiful, engineered child who was supposed to be a weapon and became their salvation instead. Do you ever regret it? Zane asks quietly. Everything you had to sacrifice, your career, your reputation, the life you built before I destroyed it. Nora looks up at him, at this man who ruined her and saved her in equal measure, who lies with surgical precision to everyone except her, who loves her with a fierceness that still takes her breath away. I regret that it had to happen the way it did, Nora says honestly. I regret the pain, the fear, the months I spent hating you and myself. But regret this? She gestures to Eva, to the Reformed Council, to the future they're building together. Never. Zane crosses to her, pulls her to her feet, kisses her like he's still discovering how. The bond flares between them, warm, golden, real, and Nora lets herself sink into it without fear. When they pull apart, Eva is watching them with those violet eyes, and Nora could swear their daughter looks satisfied, like she's reading their genetic resonance and approving of what she finds. We still have work to do, Zane says. Mara's consolidating power in the spiritual faction. There are territories that don't recognize the constitutional reforms, and Eva's abilities, Will be dealt with tomorrow, Nora interrupts. Tonight, we're just going to be a family. Is that allowed? Zane's expression softens. That's a royal decree. They spend the evening on the floor with Eva, building towers of blocks just to watch her knock them down with delighted shrieks. They eat dinner together, real food, not emergency rations consumed between crises, and talk about mundane things like Eva's sleep schedule and whether they should hire a tutor or teach her themselves. It's normal. It's domestic. It's everything Nora never thought she'd have. Later, after Eva's asleep and they're tangled together in bed, Nora traces the mate bond mark on Zane's wrist, the physical manifestation of what they created together. Do you think we'll ever stop waiting for the other shoe to drop? She asks. Probably not, Zane admits. We've lived in survival mode too long. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe it keeps us sharp, keeps us fighting for what we built. Together, Nora says. Always, Zane promises. And lying there in the dark, listening to their daughter breathe in the next room, feeling the mate bond pulse with love and trust and hard-won peace, Nora finally lets herself believe it. They survived. They evolved. They became something the old system could never have predicted, a family built on choice instead of genetics, on truth instead of tradition, on love instead of bloodline purity. The future is still uncertain. The battles aren't over. But they'll face them together, a beta king, an omega judge, and a violet-eyed daughter who will grow up in a world they're making better, one constitutional reform at a time. You made it to the end. I need you to sit with that for a second. Nora started this story being publicly humiliated, exiled, stripped of everything she built, and she ended it rewriting the laws of an entire nation. She went from victim to architect, from powerless to unstoppable. And it all started because she refused to let a corrupt system define her worth. Here's what I want you to take from this. Your value isn't determined by who stripped it away. Your intelligence, your resilience, your capacity to adapt and fight and survive, those are weapons no one can take from you. Not a corrupt boss, not a broken system, not even someone who claims to love you while hurting you. You are more than what they said you were. Always. And sometimes the people who destroy you become the catalyst for your evolution, not because they deserve credit, but because you chose to weaponize the pain instead of drowning in it. Nora and Zane's story isn't really about werewolves or mate bonds or genetic engineering. It's about two people who were trapped in systems that wanted to use them, and they burned those systems down together. It's about choosing trust when you have every reason not to. About building something real from foundations made of lies. About protecting the future, even when the cost is everything you thought you were. If this story resonated with you, if you're fighting your own battles against systems that underestimate you, subscribe. Right now. Because I'm going to keep telling stories about people who refuse to stay broken. About survivors who become warriors. About love that's earned through fire instead of gifted through fairy tales. And if you enjoyed watching this video, click the video on your screen right now. There's another story waiting for you, another character who needs you to witness their transformation. Here's an advice from me to you. Don't let your momentum stop where you are now. Keep going, keep fighting, keep believing you deserve an evolution just like Nora. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, the collar doesn't define you, your response to it does. Now go. Your next chapter is waiting.